Okay, we are live. Good afternoon. I'm delighted to be joined by David Monkhouse this afternoon. So welcome aboard, David.
Hi, Phil. Thank you for inviting me. Looking forward to sharing some results and insight with you.
Yeah, I've really been looking forward to this for a number of weeks now, and I think given the time and the situation that we're in, there couldn't be a better moment to really share some of that insight here. So just to give a little bit of a background, David is the founder and director of LeisureNet Solutions, and also an elected trustee of CIMSPA as well. I dare say you've got a fair amount of experience in the sector that we're in.
Yeah, I have, Phil. I think quite a few of your viewers may have heard my story before. Sorry, it's a little off-putting seeing these subtitles, but I think it's a really good addition, isn't it, actually? That's brilliant. Anyway, so bit of a journey. Wasn't brilliant at school, failed lots of O-levels. That's showing how old I am. And I guess this is probably a journey for a lot of people in this sector. You know, I could swim, I could play sport. I saw a course advertised, I think it was City and Guilds Recreation and Leisure Studies, went and did that, and then started my journey, part-time, full-time, you know, lifeguard, supervisor, rec assistant, duty manager, manager. I actually got to manage a site at 23, I think it was, when I got the job, which was quite young, I think, at that stage, but it was one of those things in the right place at the right time. Ended up going up to Bolton, doing some work in Bolton, and then moved to the private sector, moved into a contractor, Everyone Active, or SLM as they were at the time. Really enjoy what I do. I've done loads of things across the business, and you know, the opportunities that our sector gives people who are prepared to put some effort in, put some time in. You know, all my qualifications are part-time, CMS, DMS, MBA in International Sports Management from Loughborough. And I think our sector gives people that opportunity and chance. And I'm sure there's people watching now that will be following a similar path, will have been already on that path. And, you know, there isn't a ceiling. You can do really what you want in this sector with effort. I don't believe in luck. I think it's about effort and it's putting yourself out there. But yeah, a brilliant sector. You know, I can honestly say there's only 3 days in my entire career that I haven't enjoyed. And 2 of those were safeguarding issues and challenges.
Wow, well, that certainly speaks volumes, and I think to have that experience from the ground level up just gives you such a unique perspective on the sector in its entirety. So yeah, so delighted to welcome you onto this session, and I'll sort of hand over to you in terms of the topic that we're looking at. Really excited about this.
Okay, thanks, Phil. So plan of action, we'll do 10-15 minutes of content. We'll pause, we'll have some questions if you've got any, and then we've got a little bit more insight to share that isn't in the presentation and that's very new. We're actually writing it as we speak. So the first thing I have to do is just say thank you so much to our partners. For Global and Data Hub, if anybody's using the Data Hub, you'll know how powerful it is. If you're not using it, seriously think about it. It's a really useful piece of insight and drove an awful lot of the content of the latest UK Active white paper. So please have a look at that if you've not seen it. Big thank you to Max Associates who helped with structuring the questions and also with thinking about what was the outcome we wanted to try and achieve so that we made sure we got the questions right. And Big Wave have done such a fabulous job of creating something that is readable, that is interesting, that is really well laid out. So we have to say thank you to all of our partners before we start with the presentation. So the first thing to do, of course, when you do these types of things is think about what's the actual content, because, you know, all too often when we look at surveys, you actually see quite a small sample, which when you start cutting into that, slicing and dicing the data, you start to lose credibility in the responses very quickly. So we set out to achieve what we've achieved, to get the biggest survey out there. And we've actually got responses from over 65,000 members, customers of leisure centres, of fitness clubs, of health clubs, and actually from trampoline centres as well. And a good split in the operator type as well. So we've got 21 local trusts, we've got 18 in-house providers, so local authorities, 3 external partners, those people that manage on behalf of others. And it gives us some really good thickness in our data when we start looking at some of the response rates and the information we've got. The other thing that was really important was to keep the question level down as well. So there's only 15 questions, because normally you get about a 3 to 4% return when you put these surveys out. Whether it was because of lockdown, whether it's because we got the survey right, but we were looking, on average, nearly 15% return rate from our operators. One operator actually got a 10% return rate in just under 45 minutes when we put the survey out. So people wanted to tell us, they wanted to share their results with us.
Yeah.
So we had to start somewhere, and we thought the really interesting piece when you start to slice and dice is to understand what were people doing beforehand. So what were they actually up to before lockdown? So this slide just gives you a quick infographic as to tell you what the types of respondents were doing before they were locked down. So you can see the biggest number there was around the gym and the fitness centre, closely followed by group exercise, which is good to see. And then swimming dropping in a close third, with actually sports and things not really showing up on the survey. And I think that's primarily because operators don't tend to have the contact details for everybody that takes part in sport. When I play badminton or squash, they know who I am, but they don't know who my partner is. They don't know who the person is that I'm playing against. And I think that's why we're very much skewed here towards the fitness, the health, because it's membership based. And now lots of operators use swimming as a membership as well. So that gives you context, that gives you an overview. And the most important thing about the survey was to try and understand how our customers were feeling. So this insight is really designed to put the customer at the front end of our decision-making process when we're planning to reopen. We have got some brilliant guidance, and I have to say, CIMSPA, Sport England, UK Active, Community Leisure UK Limited are putting out some really good guidance around social distancing, around the signage, around air circulation, from Swim England, around the pool environment and things like that. What we wanted to do was make sure that when operators start planning what they're going to reopen and how, that they're listening to their customers. So this next slide is really important to us. And this slide is created by a company called My Customer Lens, who are absolutely brilliant when it comes to understanding sentiment within a survey. And sentiment comes from not your multiple choice answers to your survey questions, but when you write other and people write an essay in other. And you can imagine with 65,000 surveys, we've got an awful lot of other information here. Now, some of us might have time to go through a spreadsheet and search certain words and things like that. But what My Customer Lens does is it does it for us. It searches sentiment, it reads what people have written. Therefore, you can start getting that feeling about stuff. Now, when you first see this one, you panic a little bit. But what I need to tell you is this is from one of the questions that said, how often are you going to use the buildings when they reopen? And these are the responses from those people who said they were going to use it less or not at all. So stop worrying and stop panicking, all of you that have seen that 73% at the top, because it's not the whole survey response. This is just those people, 12% effectively, so it's a bit more than 12%, that said they were going to use it less or not at all. And when you read the sentiment, the emotion that people are showing here, 73% are nervous about coming back into our buildings. Nearly 10% have used the word or a type of word that's related to horror, which really makes you concerned about what some of us must be offering out there. And actually, when I started having a look at some of this, because I wanted to try and understand it, there were comments such as, they couldn't keep it clean when we were open normally. How are they going to keep it clean enough when we reopen? And I think those types of comments are going to be really reinforced and much more sensitive for people going forward, is that things like cleanliness, empathy from our team members, learning and development that our team members have gone through so they know their product and know how to interact with customers, the soft skills are going to be so important going forward. When you start seeing things like neglect and disgust at the end of it, it really makes you concerned about the sector that you operate in, because I don't want anybody to ever say that about the sector that I work in and any operator that works in this sector. So we've got some work to do in order to really make sure that when we reopen, that we're really thinking about how do we empathise with our customers and how do we share that concern that they've got about what we do. So doing things like filming the team, deep cleaning the changing rooms and the toilets and stuff like that, and putting that out on social media so that customers can be confident about what they're going to come back to. Filming 360-degree views of what's going to happen. What's the queue in the car park going to look like? What will reception look like? How do I get to the activity space? And what will the activity space look like? Because we've got to give people confidence that we are adhering to social distancing, that we're adhering to the cleanliness side of stuff, and we are not only safe to return to, but we're healthy to return to. And I think that's really important. There's some good stuff that's come out of this. Really interestingly, those of you that have had a look at some of the experience recovery conversations that I've been doing will see there's a bit of a theme that's coming through that from the conversation I had with Martin Allison about universal proportionalism, about how do we get to those people and make it easy for those people who wouldn't normally spend money with us to spend money with us. And actually, when we started looking at the lower and the higher socioeconomic groups, there's some really distinct feelings in the way people are responding. So the two graphs that you can see on the screen are based on the question, will you use your leisure centre more when it reopens? And those people in the low economic groups, the 1 to 3, 31% of the people who responded said they want to use it more. You know, and that's 31% of 9,166 people. So there's a good cross-section there. That's not just an assumption or a guess. That's based on a really good quality of responses. And when people were asked, will you value your sports centre more when it reopens? 59% of those people in the socioeconomic groups 1 to 3 are going to value the centre more than they did before lockdown. That's a really good opportunity for us. But it also means we've got to make sure we get our marketing right. We've got to get the images right in that. We've got to get the personalisation, the message to those users right in order to get them back into our building and back taking part in physical activity. The other stuff that we can do through all of this, because we ask for postcode, we ask for age, we ask for gender, is to start looking at information based on a male aged 24. So what you've got on the graph here is basically what were people doing before lockdown, and what sort of age groups were those people. So you can see there quite clearly right at the very beginning, the younger population were very much around the gym, were very much around the group exercise, and the older generation were very much around the swimming and the other side of things. To some extent, you'd expect that answer. That would be your gut feel. So there's a really clear picture there to give us an idea of what people were doing beforehand and therefore what they're likely to want to come back to. But it also gives us that ability to slice and dice data in a particular way that shows us what we're doing and why we're doing things. I haven't really done very much more on an actual presentation, just to say that, you know, we do have a report available if people want to buy it. But I'm interested, Phil, you're sat watching some of the questions that may be coming up at the minute. Have we got a chance to answer a few of those?
Yeah, well, we haven't actually. We've got a good number of people currently tuning in, which is fantastic. We've not had any questions. I think there's just a real fascination over the data. And if anyone who is currently watching has any burning questions that you want to ask, now is absolutely the time to type that little question into the comments box so that we can throw it at David. But I think certainly from my perspective, just looking at that real snapshot that you gave there, what I really appreciated was the practical tips, you know, going back to that slide, which I know you said was a minority of people. So those who perhaps said that they would visit a gym, you know, less than what they've previously done. And there was that a huge majority within that category of people who felt nervous. Mm-hmm. I think those practical tips that you gave in terms of showing short videos of staff cleaning a facility, you know, showing what the new world might be like in terms of access into the facility or any potential queuing. I think those were just brilliant and simple practical suggestions that we can now be doing, you know, to just answer those uncertainties, because I guess that is the real kind of absence that people don't currently have. It's just we've almost had this huge, as a not just our sector but as an overall economy, we've had this huge time out where life as we knew it has been frozen. And so we're all living in these small little bubbles connecting via sort of the world of digital. And we just don't know what the new world is like. But I think what you were suggesting there, based on the research that you've done, is just such simple and practical tools and things that we can be doing now and to really help with this. Yeah.
I'll just add to that. There's a couple of, well, there's one caveat and a story. And the caveat is, I was talking to Simon Beer at Big Wave Media recently, and Simon basically informed me that there's 12 million people in this country that are digitally poor, which means they either haven't got access to a device or they haven't got access to Wi-Fi. So yes, digital is really important, and yes, communicating via that way. But please let's remember there's a lot of people out there that won't access it that way and can't access it that way.
Yeah.
And then the second piece is that whole piece around the 360 videoing is actually really fascinating for actually quite a big population of our customer, whether it was COVID or not. My daughter worked as a teaching assistant in a school, and she got her class list, and on her class list of 31 kids, there were 9 with autism. So she decided she was going to create something to give to these children and to these parents before they came to school, so that they could familiarize themselves. So this is the school gate, and it journeyed through into the doorways, and here's where you put your coats, and this is where your classroom is, this is where the toilets is, here's your teacher, introduce them, here's this and here's that. And it was really very good. And I said, why did you only do that for 31 kids? You know, actually all 31 of those kids would really truly benefit from having that type of information. So if we did do those 360 videos, etc., why doesn't that become something that we always do? You know, so many people say to me, I could never be a member of a fitness club. I could never go there. I've got to lose some weight first. I've got to find a different way of doing things. So if we did this video so people could see people like me in those types of environments, then actually it might give people much more confidence to come and visit us anyway. So please don't think of these things as things that we should do just because we're coming out of COVID. These are things that actually will make a really big difference to an awful lot of people who would never normally cross our threshold. So a lot of the stuff we talk about as doing because we've got to reopen actually is really useful information for our client base. Well, actually not for our client base, for those people who would never normally use us. And that's got great opportunities. It's worth the investment.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the things for me that was coming out of the information that you were presenting there, David, was that actually as awful as this situation has been, what it does provide is an incredible opportunity to reset ourselves as a sector and reach a broader, part of the population.
Yeah.
We have had one question here coming from perhaps a couple. So Mark Palmer has just asked, did you find out any information about the opinion of those that have shielded or are most vulnerable in relation to returning back to facilities or services provided by gyms or leisure centres? And I think you did a little bit of perhaps answering that, but I just wondered if there's any other thoughts you can perhaps give Mark.
Phil, I love your daughter. Say hello to her.
I will. This
Seriously,
is Heidi.
mate, don't get stressed. It's absolutely brilliant. Hello.
Yeah, Heidi's my co-worker. Yeah, she's just joining us.
Brilliant. Okay, Phil, can I ask, are you seeing anything on my shared screen at the moment?
I am. I can still see that emotion slide that demonstrates the different feelings and sentiments that you were talking about.
Right. Okay. Let me see if I can find how to share the screen again. Are you still there, Phil?
I'm still here. We are still good.
Don't understand why I can't work out how to share that.
Yeah. I think what you might have to do, David, is stop sharing and reshare on a separate, is it a separate document that you're looking to share?
Yeah, yeah. But for some reason, it's not letting me do that. Hang on, let me just check. No, it's not letting me do it for some reason. Okay, so, hang on, if I do that.
Oh.
Right, and let's try share screen again. So,
yeah.
Okay, so if you've got the slide up there that's got the operators and things like that on.
Yes, yeah, we do, yeah. How important, okay. Yeah, there we go.
Right, so to answer the question directly, we didn't ask any questions around people current situation from a point of view of shielding or that type of stuff. Yeah. So I can't answer that question directly because, as I said, we kept it down to 15 questions, and to start asking those types of questions, firstly, it adds to the time it takes, and B, it puts some people off answering. So we decided not to go down the route of asking those questions around shielding. So I apologise to, did you say it was Anthony?
Mark.
Mark, sorry. Mark, we don't have that level of detail, and I haven't yet seen anything that specifically goes to individuals that were shielding. However, we can, of course, because we can look at it by age, we can start looking at what people thought and felt by age. So if we put it to something like, this is the activity levels. So in here, we can see age groups around what their activity levels were before and after before and after COVID. So this is about all age groups apart from 55 to 65-year-olds are less active. So these people are currently less active. So we can look at the age ranges, and if I'd given a little bit of time from Mark, I could actually do some work on the raw data to be able to tell you of the 75 plus age groups that completed the survey for us, what their feelings were. And just to give you an idea on numbers, within the age ranges, we had 2.3% of people answer the survey that were age 75 plus, and we had nearly 12% of people who were 65 plus. So you can draw some assumptions from the shielding side of things based on the age ranges that the government set when they first did that.
Brilliant. That's really useful. Thank you for that. We've also had another question in from Eddie May, who said, really interesting. Thank you. Any sense of how much this has heightened interest in fitness will actually continue once life gets back to normal? Also, did you get any insights about people who weren't previously engaged in it?
Okay, so I suppose the answer to the second question answers the first one as well. This is purely a member survey, it's a user survey. Yeah. The ability to get to a database when you talk to an operator and email out a survey is relatively simple. Trying to get people who aren't customers, who aren't users, isn't as easy because the databases don't really exist in a way that is cheap enough to access. You can do it, but you spend a lot of money trying to get hold of a membership database to use on that. So this only represents those people who were already interacting with facilities, gyms and operators across the board. So I can't give any indication as to what people are thinking, but of course there's plenty of insight at the minute around the YouGov surveys and that type of stuff, which does have some ideas from people who aren't customers, who aren't members, but it won't ask them, are you looking to join a gym when it reopens? And it's an interesting point because when you actually look at the less active elements of this survey, and sorry, you have to excuse me for dashing around different pictures.
Not at all.
If it because this is actually a sneak preview for all of you who are doing screen grab.
Yeah, I was
the full report that I'm messing around with here. So let me just find this piece. There you go, it's not actually on there, so let me look at a different place. So effectively what we've got is that our survey has effectively told us that almost 52% of the population is less active. Sorry, 52% of the people who completed the survey are less active. So that means people who are members of clubs are less active. Now, anecdotally, most of us would say that we're seeing a lot of people out on the streets walking, running, cycling, a lot more than we would normally do. That's what I do. I'm a runner, I'm a cyclist. And so I'm still going out. I'm actually doing more, but I'm seeing loads more people out there. So that says to me that actually there is, because the chief medical officer has told us every day, you are allowed one piece of exercise a day. It's a really interesting spin for us because nobody's ever come out and said, you're allowed physical activity. So it's been really useful. So what I think is the insight that we can draw from that, and it's insight drawn on what I'm seeing and what I'm feeling. And please remember, I live in a lovely part of the country. I do live in a little bit of a white middle class bubble. So, you can't take this as widespread, but certainly what I'm seeing, we need to be thinking about what does that mean to our services? Is our service now going to be something that we deliver outside of the four walls of our building? Do we start now investing in digital offers? Do we start now investing in cycling clubs, in running clubs, in the outdoor spaces that we've got? How do we maximize this newfound interest that people have got, and not try and do what we always do, which is create a pathway into membership, because that's easy. Let's look at new things that we can offer and share that, that link into all of this newfound interest. You know, when you start trying to buy, I don't know, 5 or 6 weeks ago, if you tried to buy a push bike, you just couldn't get one. It just didn't, you know, you couldn't get it. Wetsuits at the minute, everybody wants a wetsuit so they can do open water swimming. By the way, it's still flipping cold in open water. So seriously think about it. But you know, there's an opportunity here. Let's look at that opportunity, but not in the terms of more members. Let's look at this opportunity as of widening the offer and widening the breadth of what we do.
Yeah, and I do feel that same sentiment of this is an opportunity to reposition ourselves and work differently around the needs and wants of, you know, what will be a very different population to what we've had in the past. We've had one final question in from Kay. Do you see a depletion in the experienced sport and leisure workforce who may have had to take roles in other sectors? And if so, how do we get them back?
Yeah, and workforce, as most of you would expect, is something that I'm incredibly passionate about. I wouldn't be an elected trustee of CIMSPA if workforce wasn't something that I truly believed in. And to be fair, I wouldn't be sat in my middle class bubble now if I hadn't been part of the workforce and had that chance. Anecdotally, my daughter is a hockey player and a tennis player. Can't play hockey at the moment, but she's gone back to tennis lessons. She's had 3 one-to-one tennis lessons since the LTA changed the rules and the government changed the rules. Prior to that, her tennis coach basically went and worked in Sainsbury's. And I kept in contact with him. We're quite good friends. And he, at the beginning, he actually quite enjoyed it. He enjoyed knowing the hours he was going to work. He enjoyed knowing what he was going to earn at the end of the week, the end of the month. He quite liked the learning development they offered him. You know, he's a good guy. He can build rapport quickly. He's got those soft skills that you'd expect of a good coach. And you got the feeling from talking to him that actually tennis coaching might not be the thing he came back to. But as soon as the LTA changed the rules and the lockdown changed, he was there back trying to get coaching hours. He really, truly missed that interaction that he has with people. He missed seeing children, young people and adults develop and grow. Lots of the reasons that we are all in this sector for. So I was a little bit worried at the beginning because the thing I was experiencing was telling me we're going to lose instructors, we're going to lose coaches. And I still think we will. At the same time, some of those awarding organisations and training organisations that we work with have seen their best ever sales months for people wanting to learn how to be part of our sector. Now, yes, we've got challenges around assessment. We've got challenges around ensuring competency because you have to be competent to come into our sector. You have to be able to demonstrate the skills and the knowledge that you've got in order to be able to get onto the gym floor or into an open space or wherever it is that you're going to practice your skills and your knowledge. And we have to test that competency. And at the moment with lockdown, that's incredibly difficult. However, I think we're going to have some really interesting people wanting to join our sector. My guess will be, we were, you know, across Europe, I think that the number is about 27,000 people short of work opportunities. So in Europe, there's 27,000 vacancies effectively. So I think we were already in a difficult position before lockdown. I think we will see a dip. I think we will lose some people because they just haven't been able to survive. You know, the government has been incredible. You know, who would have thought this of a conservative government, the way that the funding, the furloughing and all those types of things have come through. I think it's brilliant. It really is. Hasn't got to everybody, but these things never can. I do think, though, there will be a bounce, and I think that bounce will be relatively strong. But as employers now, we're going to have to really find some really good people, and I think we're going to have to treat them a little bit better than we've been treating them in the past.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for that answer. A brilliant perspective. And personally, it does feel, going back to your point around the priority that the government placed within their key messaging during this entire campaign on exercise, I think that has helped heighten the purpose of what we do to a much wider population. And therefore, because of that raised level of purpose, I think the appeal and the attraction to work in this sector is going to be far greater, because more people recognize what we do and value it as more important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Bill, can I say, A, thank you very much for inviting me to be on this. B, if I see any questions come across the Facebook page, I'll do my best to answer them. But people can get my contact details relatively easily. Just give me a shout, whether it's on Twitter, LinkedIn, or via my email. Just give me a shout. All right.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, David. And we look forward to hopefully inviting you back on in a few weeks' time.
Excellent. Thanks, Phil. Take care, everyone. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.